I joined Peace Corps in 2006 after finishing my undergrad in Parks and Recreation Management, and my goal in life was to just be a tour guide and travel and see the world. And I think that, you know, to be honest, there was a big selfish element in joining the Peace Corps. But then when I got there, when I got to Paraguay, I realized, you know what, there are a lot of problems in the world. There are people being exploited by big business, people who are working really hard and making small amounts of money, people who have lost traditions, agricultural traditions from the native cultures from where their culture came, and sort of being lost in between this industrialized capitalistic society and the native cultures, and they're kind of stuck in the middle, I feel like. So those 2 years in Peace Corps were very life-changing for me, and as I was saying before, Peace Corps opens doors for you, not just in terms of getting a better resume to go to grad school or get a job, but putting you in touch with people who are on the ground making great change in places. And the organizations that I was working with were 2 nonprofits. One that was doing a land trust project to protect the last 7% of the Atlantic forest in Paraguay. So 93% has been destroyed due to unsustainable agriculture practices, slash and burn, things like that. So the other organization was working on a guard program to protect that forest and environmental education in the area. So the door that was open for me was to work with these organizations even after my Peace Corps service ended. Projects in Peace Corps were organic gardening with a women's committee and a youth group, and then that's sort of a segue into the youth group called Niños de la Naturaleza, Nature Kids, where we did science experiments, decomposition timelines, talked about the dangers of burning plastics, bird watching, environmental camps in the jungle, things like that. And then the third thing was a radio station, a radio program every Friday morning at 9 a.m. called Uvutupiro Urecabo, which is Guarani, the native language for the search for fresh air. And I worked with other Peace Corps volunteers and leaders in the community, the environmental secretary at the local municipality, and we talked about everything from endangered species to sustainability in agriculture, to HIV and AIDS issues in the area, to Michael Jackson music, which people there loved, and they knew about before we got there. So I don't want to make it sound like we were sort of exporting this culture. People requested Michael Jackson. The reason I chose Peace Corps as opposed to just going to Paraguay is because if I went to Paraguay by myself, I probably wouldn't be able to have as big of an impact. Well, there are a couple reasons. The impact is a huge one. Peace Corps is a respected organization in Paraguay. We are welcomed into communities with open arms, treated like children of families, and work with leaders in the community who are already trying to do projects that are related to what I studied. So I'm able to help there. The second reason, which is probably a bigger reason, is that I didn't know what Paraguay was. When I got invited to Paraguay, I had to look it up on a map. I knew it was in Latin America somewhere, but it could have been Panama, for all I knew. So my first probably year in my site, so first year out of 2 years, I was working with leaders in the community who were helping me implement my projects. And I feel like the poorer people in my town, which was the majority, saw me working with the rich people in town, and were a little bit hesitant, a little bit maybe ashamed to spend time with me because they thought I was part of this higher socioeconomic class that was a little bit segregated from them, quite a bit segregated from them actually. But I remember finally making friends with the Benitez family, one of the poorest families in town. Dirt floors inside their house. They didn't have any motorcycles or any cars, or I don't even think they had bicycles, which most people in town did have, usually a motorcycle at least. But they went hungry sometimes. They told me that they didn't always have enough to eat. So we made this deal. And I said, all right, I'll work with you to make a garden. I can't believe you don't have a garden, free food with this magical soil, right? But I'll help you make this organic garden. It'll be beautiful and delicious. and I'll give you 5,000 guaranis, so the equivalent to $1 once a week, if I can come eat lunch with you. And we said, great, cool. So every Wednesday I went over to the Benitez family's house, and we worked in the garden and we ate lunch together. And then I gave them 5,000 guaranis for the next week so that they could buy the food in advance and have it ready. Well, one week, and I should mention also, they always had a pig and a dog in the backyard. I showed up one week and the pig was gone. And I went into their kitchen, which was this wooden shed with like a fire ring on the dirt, and where we always gathered around and ate, and that's where they cooked. And the pig was missing, and there was no food in sight except for the skull of an animal, and it was just roasting over the fire on the end of a stick, and there was no meat on it. They had already eaten it the days prior, obviously. I mean, it was clear to me that that's what had happened. And so there's no meat. Why was this skull roasting over the fire? And then this stuff started to bubble out of the eyes and the ears and any like little hole in the head, and they were smearing this bubbling liquid off of like the eye sockets and licking their fingers, just trying to take advantage of any nutrients that they could get, any calories they could get. And they didn't offer me any. They were probably ashamed to be seen eating like this. But I realized, wow, they already spent the money that I gave them last week. They killed this pig, probably sold the meat to pay off a debt that they had, who knows. And there's not enough food for everybody. And little Ramon was the hungriest one there. He was the little kid who was complaining and saying, I'm hungry, and his parents were saying, you can eat this here. And he was like, no, that's gross. And then, out of the blue, the daughter, about 10 years old, invites me over to the main house, and she says, here, we saved this for you. And they had a plate of meat. It was a very small amount, not even enough for one person, but I've never been so thankful for any plate of food before or since. And it was the spine of the pig, I'm pretty sure. And I was trying to eat all the meat off of the bones, and I felt like I was, like I only know how to eat like a spoiled American. I couldn't get the meat out of the crevices of the bone. And I offered to share with the girl, and she said, no, and I insisted, and finally she said, okay, I'll have a couple pieces. And she just cleaned the bones, pearly white bones. And I was thinking, how do you get the meat out of all those crevices, right? So we leave the food. We were watering plants in the garden, pulling weeds, and I saw over the bamboo fence little Ramon, who was hungry, at my plate, kind of looking around to see if anybody noticed, and he was eating the little strands of meat out of the bones that I left. And I realized, wow, like, hunger is very real. People need help. This family didn't know how to garden, and, I feel like they're in the middle of this farm town where they could grow virtually anything. They don't even have a garden with carrots and onions in it. And I realized, like, this is important work. It's not a huge difference. I'm not saving the world, but I'm making a difference for this one family. They'll have some extra food, and hopefully they'll know how to continue sustaining an organic garden. By the end of 2 years, there was a huge variety of gardens throughout town where there hadn't been any gardens before. I founded this project called Ride for the Trees, and it was a fundraiser and awareness raiser. And I bicycled home from Peace Corps for about a year and a half, making presentations and doing media interviews, and ended up raising, with help from a good friend of mine who acted as manager, ended up raising about $23,000 to support forest conservation in Paraguay. So that's the equivalent of saving about 20 hectares of forest, probably.